Nestled between Tibet to the east and Kashmir to the west, Leh, the largest town of Ladakh in Jammu and Kashmir, is dynamism personified. While this high desert, located on a plateau 3,500 meters above the sea level, bears a dry and dusty look, the roots of the Indus River that flows nearby paints the landscape in a perfect green. The picturesque grey giants enveloping the city transcend the onlooker to a different altitude of ecstasy altogether. The real beauty of Leh, however, lies in its people, cultural diversity, the unique demographic arrangement, the spectacular Indus Valley, and the intrinsic flavor of heritage that breathes through the very terrain. Rich and deep-rooted ethnicity fills the air as one walks through the winding cobbled streets, passing through a never-ending trail of shops selling local crafts, fabrics, and other fineries. And it's not just about a season. Never mind the fluctuating mercury. Leh evinced life throughout the year. And its inhabitants savored the never-ending charm of nature. Unfortunately, people who always held nature synonymous with beauty also got to face its ugliest side. The flash floods caused by cloudburst hit the city on the ill-fated night of August 5th, 2010, when the entire city got gutted into a mass of rubbles.
किसी शायर ने बहुत खूब कहा है कि रोशनी अगर खुदा को हो मंजूर तो आंधियों में भी चिराग जलते हैं। जी हाँ, ये लद्दाख की वही जगह है जहां पर पिछले साल 5-6 अगस्त को प्राकृतिक आपदा ने तकरीबन 500 परिवारों को बेघर कर दिया।
In a matter of 30 minutes, once a scenic and soulful city epitomizing the bounty of nature became its most gruesome prey.
मेरे पड़ोसी भाइयों वाला एक संसार वाला है, उसको बीवी और 16 साल का बच्चा है, उसको मार गया। मेरे पड़ोसी भाइयों वाला एक युगू का है, उसको बच्चा छोटा बच्चा है, वो तो मार गया। ये लम्हा भी मार गया।
The floods claimed lives of more than 500 families, injured most inhabitants of the city, and rendered thousands of them homeless.
यहाँ पे जब 6 अगस्त को रात के 11 बजे यहाँ पे फ्लड आया था। पहले यहाँ पे रात को यानी हवा आया था, उसके बाद यहाँ पे फ्लड हुआ। उससे पहले सब यानी गांव वाले यहाँ से स्कूल की तरफ भाग रहे थे, आगे पीछे सब चारों तरफ से लोग भाग रहे थे। जब हमने सुबह देखा तो यहाँ पे बहुत से घर यहाँ से तबाह हुआ था। जब हमने गांव की तरफ देखा तो बहुत से लोग भी मर गए थे। फिर जैसे लोगों ने ये खबर सुना तो सब यानी जिसकी मौत हुए थे उन लोगों को ढूंढने के लिए गया था।
Many public buildings like hospitals, bus terminals, radio station transmitter, telephone exchange, and mobile phone towers got destroyed, virtually cutting the land from the rest of the world, where once stood a spirited, bounding city. Now looked like a huge expanse of vast burial ground.
The flash flood that has occurred on 5th and 6th of night 2010, around 2 o'clock, we were, this medical superintendent as well as some security personnel came to my residence, and they just knocked and told me about the situation that has occurred, that the flash flood had damaged major parts of, area, especially in Manisilding, and the hospital was also damaged substantially. So that was, immediately I rushed with the Honorable Minister who was in the circuit house. There I found, lot of dead bodies scattered around, and people have reached, no doubt. Some of the volunteers have already reached the site, and the doctors, the whole hospital, the one and the only hospital, was filled with mud and slides, and that is, how. And although the patients were safe, but everybody was filled with mud. The major thing, what we found in Choglamsar was the worst affected. It was totally dark and nobody could see. But there was totally panic around everywhere, and the ITBP, one of their company, was also affected, and some families were also missing.
While the surviving localites bounced back with immediate rescue measures, over 6,000 security personnel from the forces, NGOs, and visiting tourists spearheaded the operations. Apart from recovering the bodies, the most important aspect was to restore the connect with the adjoining areas and the country at large, so that the relief measures could be channelized. However, rescue efforts were hampered by gushing water and mud. Never in the history had inhabitants of Leh Ladakh ever witnessed such a natural catastrophe. Among the worst hit was the village of Choglamsar on the outskirts of the city, and the Nemo village, where it all began.
We rushed to the GOC, General Officer Commanding of the 14th Corps, and we requested him to give the army support. And then the army was also requisitioned by the civil authorities, and ultimately the general has issued the strict instruction for the army services for the civil help, and they came, say, after 2 hours. By the time, all the civil citizens, irrespective of caste, color and people, they came forward and they just helped the persons to just retrieve the injured person. There were around hundreds of dead bodies lying just near the S&M hospital, but we didn't have so much of mortuary also. So the people, whosoever could, could see could recognize their relatives, any person, that was taken away immediately to their respective places for last rite.
While the army began work on restoring the infrastructure, National Disaster Response Force, NDRF, and National Disaster Management Association, NDMA, also got into swift action. One of the most crucial aspects, however, was to rehabilitate the localites who had not only lost their loved ones, but were on the brink of losing the hope to survive.
That was indeed one of the really big disasters that our country has ever seen. I still remember those days in early August when this entire hillsides of Leh Ladakh region literally was swept away by a cloudburst of enormous dimensions. And to many Indians who remembered Ladakh and Leh for that magnificent shooting that was done in the film Three Idiots, it struck a very, very emotional chord. And then, of course, the Government of India and all its agencies geared up for the relief and rescue operations. But in our own way, I still remember that epic meeting of the Executive Board of Scope, where it came about that the public sector should put its foot forward and join hands with the people of Ladakh and Leh to be at one with them in this hour of tragedy. And I still remember in that meeting the voice of Mr. Srivastav, who was the CMD of Hindustan Prefab, and who volunteered and said that this is a task that his organization would be happy to carry out. And all of us in that board meeting spoke with one voice and appealed to the large public sector undertakings to assist Hindustan Prefab in this noble endeavor. I must say, as Secretary of the Department of Public Enterprises, that my public sector giants responded rapidly, quickly and wholeheartedly, and we were able to put in a fairly large sum of money with Hindustan Prefab so that their elbows could be strengthened and that they could take up this task forthwith. I must also say that with the combined efforts of everybody under the leadership of Mr. Srivastav, Hindustan Prefab carried out an amazing job. The entire solar colony and 25 other locations spread over about 100 square kilometers in the Leh region. The houses came up almost overnight in an unbelievable time frame of hardly 2.5 months. It stands to the credit of Hindustan Prefab, to the credit of the entire public enterprise system in our country, and to the response mechanism that we can give, that today the people of Leh Ladakh are beginning to slowly forget the wounds that were imposed on them by Mother Nature in the time of a catastrophic tragedy. I believe that we will continue, all of us in the public sector, Hindustan Prefab in particular, to stand by the people of Leh at this time of crisis until every one of their wounds have been healed and we have been able to provide a complete package of services to them.
Further complementing the rehabilitation process was another PSU, Hindustan Prefab Limited, HPL, which attempted to instill a new ray of hope against hopelessness. Amidst the extreme climatic uncertainties and the likeliness of another major downpour, within a span of 6 weeks, HPL provided prefabricated homes.
In Leh, we had a very limited season. Only for 6 months one can do the construction work. So we just thought of doing a prefab, for which the Hindustan Prefab Limited came forward and challenge of constructing 450 prefab huts. And the best thing, we just commended, they have to be commended to that extent that it has been done in a record time, because the PMO and other, everywhere it was, the media especially, everybody was after that. It was a difficult task to achieve, and ultimately they've been able to construct all the houses before the onset of winter, because most of the people were staying in the, these relief camps in the tented accommodation.
This not only extended a safe shelter, but also encouraged other public and private sector companies to join the rescue operations. HPL's swift drive helped the villagers heave a sigh of relief, as they were now well armed to face the forthcoming winter season. Though no external effort could make up for the emotional and psychological loss suffered by the inhabitants of Leh, a firm shelter on their head extended them some warmth, which held a promise of a better tomorrow. And despite the irreversible loss, one thing that the people of Leh haven't lost is the fighting spirit and the firm resolve to move ahead in life.
Peace means
Hindustan Prefab Limited is just one of the many milestones in their journey of resurrection, and they await many more building blocks to put their houses back in order.
Government of India has assigned the task for construction of 450 houses for the victims of cloudburst. We as the HPL has accepted the challenge.
While dreams and homes have been washed away, their hope is still afloat.